Hello everybody, it's your girl Lovely Lisa here. This is the first video of our Bible study segment. I'm going to be breaking down every book of the Bible, of the King James Version. We know that it's 66 books in this Bible. I know it's a larger Bible out here. I need to get my hands on it, but I shall find it one day. But I'm going to start with what we have and what people can get access to fast. You could find a copy of your Bible at the dollar store, so there is no excuse. I pray that you guys follow me. We learn together because I've never done this before. So and please excuse my language because sometimes I cuss, and my God knows I cuss, and we still have a good relationship. So for those who, can still follow along, please follow along and share this information. I'm going to show you the book that I'm going to be reading from. Basically is the complete guide to the Bible by Stephen M. Miller. Let's get started because I don't want this to be all long and drawn out. Anyway, Genesis is the first first book, and it has 50 chapters in it. And I'm just going to read all of my notes. So Genesis comes from the Greek word meaning origin, birth, or beginning. Genesis is full of beginnings: the universe, humanity, sin, civilization, the Jew nation. Genesis doesn't answer how the universe was created or who created it. Main point: God created and sustains everything. Though through sin of Adam and Eve, God's creation was damaged, and God plans to restore the relationship with humanity and creation. People say Moses wrote the first 5 books, Genesis through Deuteronomy. So the dates for Genesis: before the beginning of time, through the lifetime of Abraham's great-grandson Joseph, around 1800 BC. The location is around Middle East, now Iraq, Syria, and Turkey, Israel, and Egypt. So, creation took 7 days, it says. Day 1 was light. Day 2, he separated the sky from the water on earth. Day 3, he separated land from water and plants. Day 4, he did the sun, the moon, the stars. Day 5, fish and birds. Day 6, land animals and human beings. Day 7, God rests. Creation was excellent. So no one knows how long it took to create. Could have been a day, could have been 7 days, or it could have been eon years, right? Or how plants could grow on day 3 without the sun on day 4. They don't know how the plants could grow on day 3 without the sun that he created on day 4. Okay. Or how days were measured without the sun. I also have notes saying humanity was final. Genesis 1:26. Let's make humans in our image to be like us. Now, to me, every time I read it, I hear plural, but who knows? Before the 10 Commandments, there was only one: do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Nobody knows why. Maybe humans weren't mature enough, or God will allow us later, So then it starts to talk about the story of Adam and Eve. He created man out of dust, or the ground, whatever. Let's go to There's so much in here. So the serpent says, "You won't die, your eyes will be open." Eve eats and convinces Adam to do so too. Everything changes. Adam and Eve are kicked out of Eden. They have to survive through growing food and painful childbirth. They mentioned the sons of God. So many experts say that they were the angels or kings, princes, rulers, basically godly men. Within 10 generations, God was so saddened with all the sin that he destroyed the world and saved one family, which was Noah's family. That's Genesis 6:6. He told him to build a floating warehouse longer than a football field, half as wide and 4 stories high. 40 days it rained. 5 months later, the boat stops around Turkey, Iran, Armenia. Noah waits for a year before leaving the ark. The rainbow is God's promise to never again flood. It says, "Never again will the flood waters destroy all life." Genesis 9:15. So then it goes into talking about Abraham. He's the Iraqi father of the Jews. Genesis chapter 13, verses 15 and 16. It's telling me to read page 15. "I'm giving all this land, as far as you can see, to you and your descendants as a permanent possession. And I will give you so many descendants that, like the dust of the earth, they cannot be counted." That sounds like something in Lion King. Anyway, Abraham grows up in the Euphrates River town of Ur, is now would be considered southern Iraq. Ur is a very busy city with wealth, culture, the oldest written language. They didn't use pens and papers and ink and stuff like that. They used reed sticks to press photos into clay. Abraham's father, Terah, leaves and moves whole family to the boonies of Canaan. Right? So Genesis was so deep that I couldn't do it in one page. Getting down here. So experts say that Terah might have thought that, Ur might have been invaded, but Ur wasn't invaded until like a century later. So this is around 2100 BC. So Terah stops halfway to Canaan, settles about 600 miles upriver in the busy town of Haran, which is Turkey's side of the border with Syria, right? So after Terah dies, God tells Abraham to finish the trip to Canaan. God promises to grow Abraham's family into a great nation. 75-year-old man with a 66-year-old wife. They have no children. They don't understand how. They about to have descendants, and they're this old and don't have any children. Abraham listens and heads what is now to Israel. 10 years later, they still have no kids. Abraham's wife Sarah calls for a surrogate, which was the Egyptian-born servant, Hagar. Hagar gives birth to the first son, and they named him Ishmael. But God says Sarah will bear Abraham's son. So God shows up as a traveler in the camp and says so. Sarah overhears. At this time, now she's 91 years old, and she laughs like, yeah, okay. But God always says the last laugh. So in 1 year, Sarah births a boy. And they named him Isaac. Isaac means laughter in Hebrew. So now Sarah doesn't want the boys to split Abraham's wealth, his inheritance, right? Crazy, right? Like, you should have thought about that. You bring this woman into your family, she bears a son, and now God gave you a son, and then you like, oh no, I don't, we don't want to split all that. People. Anyway, so she convinces Abraham to send surrogate Hagar and son away. God approves because God promises that he'll take care of both boys. Isaac descendants become Jewish people, and Ishmael fathered the Arab people. Ishmael has dozens of sons who start a dozen tribes all over Egypt to Saudi Arabia. Genesis 19:24-25. Let's see. Anything that I missed? Anything that I missed? Okay, so now we go to the theories on the toasting of sodomy. So Sodom. Let me see, Sodom. The Lord rained down fire and burning sulfur from the sky on Sodom and Gomorrah. He utterly destroyed them, along with the other cities and villages of the plain, wiping out all the people and every bit of vegetation. Genesis 19, verses 24-25. Right? So, these twin cities, Sodom and Gomorrah, neighborhood and the villages, were known for pride, gluttony, and laziness, while poor and needy suffered outside her door. Ezekiel 16, verse 49. Men in Sodom tried to gang rape angels sent to escort Lot out of town, earned rep for rape and homosexuality. Sodomy means homosexual sex. They don't know where this place is. Experts say that maybe God seared it from the planet. Theories say it will be near shallow water on the Dead Sea's south end. And they were wondering, well, how did God destroy these cities? So they looked at two facts: the Great Rift Valley location, in that it had natural gas and sulfur and salt. So they had two theories: the Big Boom theory, which they said the earthquake ripped pockets of natural gas, which were ignited by the lamps that they had in the cities, or two, surfing turf theory. It was built on the sand, on the coast or whatever, and earthquake came and sunk, and the city sunk like quicksand. And that theory was from Graham Harris in 1995 in one of his books that he wrote. So later on, God to Abraham, kill your son. Genesis 22, verse 2. So it says, take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering. So God orders Abraham to slaughter Isaac, chop up his body into manageable pieces and burn it to ashes. Ain't that crazy? Be back, because I am at work and Spike's calling me. Let's see if I can finish. So Genesis 22:2 says, take your son, your only son, yes, Isaac, whom you love so much. Go and sacrifice him as a burnt offering. So God tells Abraham to slaughter his son Isaac, chop up his pieces, and burn them to ashes. So Abraham is like, okay, God, because maybe you'll raise him from the dead piece by piece. The Bible doesn't say how old Isaac is, but Jewish legends say he about 37, right? So let me go over here. Page 19, basically read. Okay. So Abram's plan shocked Sarah to death at age 127. Father and son walk about 3 days north to Mount Moriah, the hill where Jews 1,000 years later built Jerusalem temple. There he made an altar with stones, and he put wood on top. He ties up his son, lays him on the altar, and picks up a knife to slice his throat for a quick death. He hears an angel say, "Don't lay a hand on that boy." It could have been God himself. Now I know that you truly fear God. You have not withheld me from even your son, your only son. Ain't that crazy? Because God knows everything. So why wouldn't you know that his heart really was like for you, God? Who knows, right? That was crazy. Jacob and Esau, twins at war. So Isaac marries Rebecca, who becomes pregnant with twin boys, Jacob and Esau. They wrestle so much in the womb that Rebecca asks God, "Why is this happening to me?" So God says, "The sons in your womb will become two nations." God answers, "From the very beginning, the two nations will be rivals. One nation will be stronger than the other, and your older son will serve your younger son." Perhaps that's why the number 2 son, Jacob, who was born one moment after Esau, becomes her favorite. Papa Isaac prefers Esau, the red-haired hunter who brings home savory meat. Jacob cheats Esau out of 2 most valuable things in ancient life: an inheritance and the deathbed blessing of the father. So, Isaac married Rebecca. She gets pregnant with the 2 twins. They fight or whatever. Esau does this stupid thing, and he trades his inheritance for a bowl of hot soup. So back in the day, your inheritance was double of what you got or whatever. So maybe he only traded it for 1 share, and he kept the other share. But that's still stupid, like for a bowl of soup. And then it says something about maybe Jacob waited for the right time. Later, Isaac intends to give Esau his blessing on his deathbed. Now, mind you, Isaac is blind now. He's old man, he's blind. So Rebecca helps Jacob trick the blind Jacob into thinking he is Esau. Isaac blesses the wrong son, words that he can't take back. Genesis 27, verse 39. It says, "You will live..." Let me see. He's saying this to Esau later. "You will live away from the richness of the earth and away from the dew of the heaven above." Genesis 27, verse 39. So now Esau is like, "Yo, I'm gonna kill you as soon as daddy die." So Jacob leaves the country and heads north to his mother's brother, which is Uncle Laban. Uncle Laban lives on the border, which is now Turkey and Syria. I'm gonna come back. I told y'all I was about to be back. I had to come drive and put my uniform back on. Anyway, so after Jacob leaves and he goes to live with his uncle Laban, he falls in love with his first cousin. My group must be coming. I don't know. He turned on his bus. There be people all over just standing by the door and by my window, and there be weird stuff going on. Anyway, he falls in love with his first cousin. Laban's daughter. Laban has two daughters, one named Leah and one named Rachel. So Jacob falls in love with Rachel. Rachel is the youngest. She's the second daughter of Uncle Laban, right? So, all right. So now, back in them times, women are property during this time. So when you want to marry somebody, you being a woman, you leave from your father and you go to the husband, and now the father is looking for something, some compensation, like, what you going to give me because now I don't have a worker, right? So Genesis 29:17 through 18. There was no sparkle in Leah's eyes. Leah is the oldest daughter. But Rachel had a beautiful figure and a lovely face. Since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he told her father, I will work for you 7 years if you give me Rachel, your younger daughter, as my wife. So Jacob falls in love with the gorgeous Rachel. She's his first cousin and, Laban's number 2 daughter. So unfortunately, because Jacob had to run because Esau was going to come kill his behind, he left without any of his assets, which usually are animals, his herd or whatever. So Jacob offers to work for 7 years for payment for Rachel. So 7 years later, Jacob gets a surprise in his life. He is now married, and he wakes up to the wrong woman in his bed. Now, who knows how you can marry the wrong woman and then wake up and then be married to the wrong woman, okay? But Jacob gets a surprise in his life. He wakes up to Leah, which is the unattractive older sister. They're thinking, like, experts may say it could have been a night wedding, a thick veil over her face, and lots of wine, right? Lots of liquor. So he got messed up that night, right? We don't know. Mind you, this is the notes from this book that I've been reading, the guide to the Bible. So of course Jacob is upset. He goes to his uncle Laban and says, hey, yo, you gave me the wrong sister. I told you I want Rachel. Rachel is the one. I want to marry her. How could you? What in the world is going on? So the uncle says, basically, it's custom to marry the first daughter, the oldest daughter. And I guess it wasn't custom to let him know that either. So, whatever. So, Jacob is like, you know what? Whatever. I'm going to go through this whole week with celebrations or whatever with Leah. Whatever. Because Leah probably felt really bad. Like she was used by her father. Felt used by Jacob, but Jacob didn't know that was whatever. Who knows? She probably felt real bad about herself. She not the cutest. He didn't want her, and like Jacob got tricked. He was the trickster. Remember, he tricked his brother Esau. Him and his mom tricked Esau. So whatever. So Jacob agrees with the week-long celebrations. At the end of the week, Jacob marries Rachel, right? After committing to work another 7 years. So guess who won out of this deal? The dad, Uncle Laban. That was crazy. So that's all the notes that I wrote, but there's more to the story, and I couldn't wait to do this video because it was getting good. So this book also referred to Leah and Rachel as Beauty, Mrs. Beauty and Mrs. Beast. So because Leah wasn't the prettiest, she was the beast, and the beauty was right? So it says, goodbye Laban, hello Esau. Jacob puts his wives and children on camels, and he drove all his livestock in front of him. He packed all the belongings he had acquired and set out for the land of Canaan, where his father Isaac lived. Genesis 31, chapter 17 through 18. So basically, after working hard, working as a shepherd, Jacob not only managed to make Uncle Laban rich. Jacob gets rich, not only in herds but in children. He had 13 children. Wealth back then was measured with the size of your family. The size of your family, the bigger the family, the more workers you have, the more that you can produce, right? So Jacob ends up with this many children because, mind you, he has 2 wives. So the 2 wives, they compete for his affection, his love, or whatever, trying to give him sons. So that's what they was doing. They was up there getting it in, right? So God takes pity on Leah because Jacob doesn't love her like he does Rachel. So God allows Leah to have 6 sons and a daughter. So that's 7 kids. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 6 more kids, right? That needs to be had. Leah also gives Jacob her maid as a surrogate mother, who provides 2 more sons. So that's 9 kids, right? Rachel is infertile for many years. She offers her maid as well and gets 2 more sons. So that's 11. So Jacob then had 11 kids by 4 women. 2 of them were surrogates. So in time, Rachel has 2 sons of her own. Jacob's favorite boys, Joseph, who is the firstborn, and Benjamin. So Benjamin was born on a road trip back to Canaan. And it says that Rachel actually died giving birth to Benjamin. So with his 14 years served with another 6 used to build his own flock, Jacob heads for home. But he's terrified of his brother, right? So the night before crossing into Canaan, he sends his family first, because he wanted to spend some time alone. Probably spend some time with God. Like, God, please don't send my brother over here to kill me, slice my throat, or kill my family. Like, listen, I'm trying to come home. I got my wife. That was so many years ago, God. I know you forgave me. Please let my brother forgive me. I don't want my brother to kill me. So, he spent some time alone. So then this book says a mystery man arrives. I remember reading or listening to someone, and they said that Esau actually arrived, right? So I don't know. I have to read it for myself. I haven't read it for myself. You see how things could get transcrewed or whatever, conscrewed. So it says he says a mystery man appeared. And somehow Jacob seems to recognize this man as being with the power to influence the future. So he's spending some time alone. He sees this man and he's just like, oh my God, he could help me. Okay? So then Jacob grabs him and says, and the Bible experts say that it's either an angel or God in human form. Jacob says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. Genesis 32, verse 26. After all night struggle, the man finally blesses Jacob and gives him a new name, Israel. It means God struggles, or one who struggles with God. Centuries later, Jacob's descendants will take this name of his nation. So with Esau ahead, Jacob sends waves after waves of gifts for his brothers through hundreds of livestock delivered by many herders. So the herders return with the news that Esau is coming with an army of 400 men, right? So Jacob arranges his family in a column, putting his beloved Rachel and young Joseph at the very back. Benjamin isn't born yet. So I had jumped the gun by telling you that she died while giving birth to Benjamin. But listen. So he puts him in a column, putting his beloved Rachel and young Joseph in the back. Joseph isn't born yet. Jacob walks ahead of his entire family and bows to his brother. Esau ran to him and embraced him, threw his arms around his neck and kissed him. And they both cried. They both wept. Genesis 33 verse 4. So Jacob then settles in Canaan where he had grew up, and Esau moves into what is now Jordan. And the land takes his nickname Edom, which means red, right? Cool. So everybody happy. Ain't nobody kill each other. So selling little brother Joseph. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing, then grabbed him and threw him in the cistern. Genesis chapter 37, verses 23 to 24. Mind you, Jacob is one of the favorite sons. Joseph is one of the favorite sons of Jacob. One of the two youngest by Rachel. His love. So Jacob plays favorites with his dozens of sons, right? Normally, the oldest son get the attention because they would reap the benefits of the inheritance, right? So the oldest is Reuben, the son of Leah. Remember, he married two people, Leah and Rachel. So from Leah, the not too pretty wife, she birthed Reuben, Simon, Levi, Presley family scattered throughout Israel, okay? Judah, Dan, and Naphtali. I don't know how. Naphtali, maybe. So then it was Gad. I'm not sure who was the surrogate kids, but he also birthed Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, who knows? And the last two sons, which were from Rachel, his favorite person, right? Joseph and then Benjamin, right? So then Jacob plays favorites with his dozens of sons, right? His oldest is Reuben, son of Leah, would have been the one to get the inheritance. But Jacob preferred the oldest son of his dear Rachel, which was Joseph, number 11 in the line of all the boys. Rachel had died en route to Canaan while giving birth to her second son, Benjamin. So these two boys are all Jacob has to remember are the only woman he truly loved. So then Joseph grows up to be a spoiled, tattletale teen. So none of the brothers like this baby brother. He the favorite, and is all these boys before him that should have been like the favorite or whatever. And then he a tattletale. Like, don't nobody like that. So then his brothers grew up to hate him. So then a dream turned the brothers violent against Joseph. So Joseph at the age of 17 tells his family that he had a dream about the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bow before him. So even Jacob, the father, gets upset because he sees the symbolism. Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow to the ground before you? Jacob scolded. Genesis 37 verse 10. Soon afterwards, maybe some weeks, who knows, Jacob's 10 oldest sons are out grazing the sheep about 60 miles north of the Hebron home. That's about 3-day walk. Jacob sends Joseph, the youngest favorite, to check on them. So Joseph puts on the beautiful robe that his father had gave him and went out to check on his brothers. So when the brothers see him, they like, here comes the dreamer or whatever. They rip off Joseph's robe and throw him into a dry cistern, which is a deep pit that's built to store water. While they argue over whether or not to kill him, a trader's caravan stops. The caravan is headed towards Egypt, and one of the merchants agrees to buy Joseph and sell him in Egypt as a slave. The selling price was 8 ounces of silver. Today, on the market, that's about $80 when silver sells for $10 an ounce. With Joseph gone, the brothers smear his torn robe into goat's blood, and then they take it and they take it home and tell their father that they found it, convincing old Jacob that a wild animal ate his son. Jacob is a mess. He is just like over it, like, oh, they killed my baby. This is my baby. Oh my God, this is his favorite child, right? So then the love of his life is gone, and so is her first son. I'm gonna cut in the middle of this, right? So now Jacob is just a mess. He's crying over his son, Joseph, who he thinks is dead. Let me tell you a story in between. So they said, Daddy is my grandpa. That's funny. So anyway, Judah, one of Jacob's dozen sons, fathered twin boys with his daughter-in-law. But he didn't know that that was his son's wife. He thought she was a prostitute. So the wife's name was Tamar. She married Judah's son Er, but Er died before the couple had any children. So it's custom for Er's brother to marry the widow. That way Tamar could have had a son in Er's name to inherit Er's property. So women couldn't inherit property since they were property. So younger brother Onan married Tamar and had sex with her, but he refused to release semen inside of her. So this Negro done pulled out on this joint. Like, the whole point of you marrying your brother's wife was to procreate, and then here you go, you marry her, you have sex with her, and then you pull out. So guess what God did? He wanted his children to inherit all the property, right? He like, whatever. So for that, God killed him. I don't know how, but they just put it in here real fast. So with two sons down, Judah refused to give the third son, Sheila, to take Tamar to have children. So he's like, listen, I already got two boys down. I don't want to give you to my third son, because who knows? You might got some voodoo, buju, whatever, some stuff going on with you, probably. I don't know. So Tamar, she dressed up as a prostitute, covered her face with a veil, and put herself in Judah's path. He propositioned her, had sex with her, and gave her his walking stick as collateral for payment, which was good in her favor. But I don't want no walking stick after you done had my goods. Like, my goods is worth way more than a walking stick. They talk about girls now with $40. What a girl would do with $40. Back then, it was a walking stick. I'm over it, okay? So she kept the stick, which turned out to be good for her. Then Judah found out that Tamar was pregnant. He ordered her burned to death. So he's like, hold up, my one son died. I give you my other son. He don't procreate with you. I'm not giving you my third son. And then here you come up pregnant? By who? Like, what? You whore. Go die, right? But then she come out and she like, ha, I got the stick, right? And so now he's like embarrassed, and oh my God, I slept with my son's wife, and now she's pregnant. So he like, okay. Judah replied, she is more righteous than I am, because I didn't arrange for her to marry my son Shelah, the third son. Genesis 38:26. So Tamar had twins, Perez and Zerah. They became the legal sons of Er. Judah never slept with Tamar again. So that was a little snippet that they wanted to put in here that we should know. So back to Joseph, right? So since Joseph was governor of all Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all the people, it was to him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before him with their faces to the ground. Genesis 42 verse 6. So, before we get there, remember Jacob's son Joseph was set out to check on his brothers. The brothers sold him for $80 worth of silver. Well, now it would be worth $80, right? But sold him into slavery to Egypt or whatever, and then told the father, hey, we found this robe, we got all this blood in it, and we think he was killed by some crazy animal, right? So Joseph then begins a life in Egypt as a household slave for the Potiphar, captain of the palace guard. Potiphar takes a liking to this hardworking boy and eventually puts him in charge of all of his household affairs. Potiphar's wife takes a liking to this handsome young boy as well, and she wants to become one of the household affairs. So sexual harassment continues day after day. It finally ends when Potiphar's wife grabbed Joseph by the cloak, his clothes or whatever, and says, baby, come here. Come sleep with me. She probably all old and ugly and stuff. That's horrible. So she said, come and sleep with me. Genesis 39:7. So Joseph, he fled the scene. He leaves. He left with her holding his clothes or whatever. So furious, she screams rape. So this acts like a trumpet calls that rallies all over servants in rage of her blast, right? So this sounds all too familiar, right? When the servant, the master's wife wants the servant's like, no, but now the master's wife is like, what? You don't want to touch me? He raped me. We've seen this story over and over and over again. History repeats itself, even all the way back then. So Potiphar apparently doubts her story. He looking at her like, girl, don't nobody want you. I don't even want you. You think this young, beautiful, hard-working, fit man wants you? He could have put the boy to death, but he was like, listen, I don't even believe this story. I'm just going to put you in jail. So then, is a good thing for Joseph. So then he interprets dreams for two of the king's recent jail servants. So correctly predicting what will happen to the men, the baker was executed and the wine server gets his job back. Nice. So 2 years later, the king has some troubling dreams and the wine servant tells him about Joseph. In one of the dreams, 7 starving cows eat 7 fat cows. And in another, 7 withered heads of grain gobble up 7 plump grain heads. So the next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt, Joseph tells the king, interpreting the dream. But afterward there will be 7 years of famine so great that all prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land, Genesis 41:29-30. So the king not only believes Joseph's and his interpretations, he believes that God has given Joseph special insight and wisdom. So he puts Joseph in charge of managing the grains to get the nation through the coming famine. So drought spreads at least as far north, modern day Israel, right? So there, the old Jacob, his daddy, hears about the grain reserves in Egypt. So he sends his 10 oldest sons to Basan. He keeps with him Benjamin, which is all he has left to remind him of Rachel. So the men bow before their brother, who is about 20 years older than what they saw him last. They didn't recognize him, right? But Joseph recognizes them, and he hatches a scheme to see if they will regret what they did to him. You are spies, he tells them. He ordered them to bring the younger brother Benjamin before him to prove that they're not lying about who they are. In the meantime, Joseph holds one of his brothers hostage. Is Simon, the second oldest. Perhaps maybe because Joseph skips Reuben, the oldest, because it was Reuben who talked the other brothers out of not killing him. Right? So when Joseph is listening, the brothers admit that they are getting what they deserve. Clearly, we're being punished because of what we did to Joseph long ago. They said we saw his anguish and he pleaded for his life, but we didn't listen. That's why we're in trouble. Genesis 42:21. Joseph weeps, realizing they're sorry for what they had done to him. The men return to Canaan, but old Jacob, the daddy, refuses to let Benjamin go. He like, no, this is my baby. This is all I got. I'm my wife. My wife. Okay. But then he holds out as long as he can until the family needs more grain. So then he says, all right, listen. He sent all his sons to Egypt, Benjamin included. All right? Hurry back to my father and tell him this is what your son Joseph says. God has made me master over all the land of Egypt. So come down to me immediately. You can live in the region of Goshen, where you can be near me with all of your children and grandchildren, your flocks and herds, and everything you own. Genesis 45:9-10. So with his brothers again, that was just the scripture. So with his brothers again at his mercy, Joseph concocts one more test. He loads them up with grain. Then he has the servants stuff one of his silver cups into Benjamin's backpack, right? And then they arrest Benjamin for stealing. So Joseph wants to see if his older brothers will abandon the little brother just as they did him, right? So then the brothers, they like, listen, no, don't take him. My father, Judah, confesses that what they had did to Benjamin's brother and how it broke their father's heart. Like, listen, we cannot go back home and say that that the brother ain't here. Like, it's going to kill our father. Right? So it was Judah who talked his brothers into selling Joseph to the slave traders. But now it's Judah who offers to take Benjamin's place, right, to stay in Egypt as a slave. Joseph can't hold back the urge of emotion any longer. I am Joseph, he cries. Is my father still alive? So stunned, silent, the older brothers expect like him to like beat them or like kill them. Shoot. Instead, they get forgiveness. Don't be upset and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me in this place. Joseph reassures them. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. Genesis 45, verse 5. With the king's blessing, Joseph invites his entire family to move down to the lush Goshen grasslands of northern Egypt to weather out the remaining 5 years of the famine. Jacob, ecstatic at discovering his son is still alive, happily goes, and the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all 70 of them, moved to Egypt. Whew. That was a lot, and that was all of Genesis. Now we gotta read Genesis. So the next video will be us reading Genesis in its entirety. It's going to take about 3 hours and 30 minutes because I looked it up on YouTube already, and it takes about that time if I read it slow and stuff like that so that we can comprehend it. So with all of that, that was the breakdown of everything that happened. Now, of course, that was like the movie version. The next video will be the book version. So it's going to be more detailed and stuff like that. So you guys, if y'all enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, share with your family members, and come with me on this journey as we read this Bible, okay? We want to take our time, slow and steady, okay? Thank you. Lovely Lisa loves you, and I will see y'all later.